A few weeks after the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam's inauguration, the Nile's waters surged unexpectedly. Villages in Sudan were flooded, and parts of Egypt's delta saw rising rivers. But behind the headlines lies a deeper story, one of hidden agendas, strategic maneuvers, and subtle power plays along Africa's longest river. In the immediate aftermath of the floods, Egyptian officials were quick to address the nation. At a press conference in Cairo, the government spokesperson reassured the public that, remarkably, there were no reported fatalities across the country. This announcement brought a sense of relief, especially given the scale of the flooding and the widespread concern among communities living near the Nile and its delta. However, the absence of loss of life did not mean the country was spared from hardship. Significant damage was confirmed in the low-lying areas of the Nile Delta, where entire fields were submerged and homes were left surrounded by water. Farmers faced the loss of crops, and families found their daily routines upended as roads and infrastructure became impassable. In response, the Egyptian Red Crescent, alongside local authorities, quickly mobilized emergency teams. Their first priority was to assess the extent of the damage and provide immediate relief to the most affected villages, such as Jazi Manouf in Manufia. Aid workers distributed food, clean water, and essential supplies, while engineers began evaluating the safety of damaged buildings and roads. Meanwhile, just across the border in Sudan, the situation was even more dire. Floodwaters swept through towns and villages, destroying homes and forcing families to flee. Tragically, 19 people lost their lives, and nearly 175,000 others were displaced, seeking shelter in makeshift camps, or with relatives in safer areas. The humanitarian crisis deepened as health risks surged. Flooded clinics struggled to treat a rising number of patients suffering from malaria, diarrhea, and malnutrition. Aid organizations rushed to distribute mosquito nets and medical supplies, but damaged health facilities made it difficult to reach everyone in need, especially vulnerable children and the elderly. The scale of the disaster dominated headlines across the region, with dramatic images of flooded landscapes and urgent calls for help. Yet, as the news cycle moved on, it became clear that the story of these floods was about more than just heavy seasonal rainfall. It was a stark reminder of the vulnerability of communities along the Nile, and the growing challenges they face in an era of changing climate and unpredictable weather. Ethiopia completed the GERD in September 2025, a project capable of holding 74 billion cubic meters of water. Officially, it's a hydroelectric powerhouse, but its timing and operation reveal a strategic dimension. By controlling water releases, Ethiopia can influence downstream river levels, demonstrating both domestic progress and regional clout. Egypt publicly framed the flooding as a man-made event, linking it to Ethiopia's unilateral dam management. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli highlighted preemptive releases from the high dam to protect citizens. Analysts say Egypt's messaging combines public reassurance with a subtle warning: upstream actions have consequences. Sudan's story is, well, one of geography and strategy. The country is often caught between Ethiopia's upstream decisions and Egypt's downstream monitoring. With embankments weakened and climate variability intensifying rainfall, Sudan becomes the front line for Nile politics. Behind the relief efforts lies, honestly, a delicate balancing act in regional negotiations. Experts note that water from Ethiopia reaches Egypt in about 17 days after its release. Sudden spikes or reductions in water flow are rarely accidental. They're actually a form of hydrodiplomacy, influencing negotiations, testing responses, and actively shaping public perception across borders. Climate change, really compounds the hidden stakes here. Delayed rainy seasons up in the Ethiopian highlands, together with these above-average White Nile flows, well, they create unpredictable floods. And now, every flood has this kind of dual identity. It's both a natural hazard and a strategic signal. Since Ethiopia started building the GERD back in 2011, the dynamics of the Nile River basin have been shifting dramatically. This massive infrastructure project, aimed at generating hydroelectric power, has been a source of national pride for Ethiopia. However, it has also sparked significant concerns among downstream countries, particularly Egypt. Cairo has been pretty worried about losing its leverage over the Nile waters. The Nile is Egypt's lifeline, providing nearly all of its freshwater needs. The prospect of reduced water flow due to the GERD has led to fears of water scarcity, which could impact agriculture, industry, and daily life for millions of Egyptians. The 2015 Declaration of Principles was supposed to encourage cooperation, aiming to ensure that the dam's construction and operation would not harm the interests of downstream countries. This agreement was a significant diplomatic milestone, symbolizing a commitment to dialogue and mutual benefit. But, honestly, there's still no binding operational agreement in place. Despite numerous rounds of negotiations, the countries have yet to agree on key issues, such as the filling and operation of the dam. This lack of a concrete agreement leaves many questions unanswered and tensions high. This leaves room for strategic maneuvering, each country trying to secure its own interests. Ethiopia, with its control over the dam, holds significant power over the flow of the Nile. This has led to a complex geopolitical chess game, with each nation trying to outmaneuver the others. Ethiopia controls storage and release, giving it the ability to manage the flow of water downstream. This control is crucial for Ethiopia's energy production and economic development, but it also places a significant responsibility on the country to manage the water equitably. Egypt manages infrastructure and messaging, working tirelessly to ensure that its water needs are met and that its concerns are heard on the international stage. The country has invested heavily in water management systems and diplomatic efforts to safeguard its interests, and Sudan keeps an eye on flows and tries to mediate. Positioned between Ethiopia and Egypt, Sudan plays a crucial role in monitoring the river's flow and facilitating dialogue. The country stands to benefit from the dam's electricity, but also faces risks if water management is not handled carefully. Beneath the surface, the Nile is kind of like a chessboard. Every move, every ripple, is part of a much larger game, one that's been unfolding for generations. The river may look peaceful from above, but underneath, there's a constant push and pull, a silent contest for control and influence. Each country along its banks is a player, carefully planning its next step, weighing risks and rewards, and watching its rivals for any sign of weakness or opportunity. Egypt leans on its historical rights and infrastructure, drawing on decades of treaties and engineering marvels like the Aswan High Dam. For Egypt, the Nile is more than just a river. It's the lifeblood of the nation, a source of identity and survival. The country's leaders often invoke history and tradition, reminding the world of Egypt's long-standing dependence on these waters and its legal claims to a major share. Ethiopia, on the other hand, uses its upstream control and energy leverage to shift the balance. With the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Ethiopia is asserting its right to harness the Nile for its own development, generating electricity and boosting its economy. This new dam is more than just concrete and turbines. It's a symbol of ambition and a tool for negotiation, giving Ethiopia newfound influence over the flow of the river. And Sudan finds itself in this strategic middle ground. Caught between the ambitions of its neighbors, Sudan must navigate a delicate path, balancing its own needs with the pressures from both north and south. Its position gives it a unique perspective, and sometimes unexpected leverage, in the ongoing negotiations and disputes. Lately, floods, dam releases, and even media statements are just as much about signaling strength and testing rivals as they are about managing water. Each event, whether natural or orchestrated, becomes a message, an assertion of power, a warning, or a call for cooperation. The world watches as these countries use every tool at their disposal, from infrastructure to information, to shape the future of the Nile. In the end, the real game is about more than just water. It's about influence, security, and the ability to shape destinies, not just for today, but for generations to come. The Nile keeps flowing, but honestly, it carries more than just water. It carries ambition, influence, and all sorts of hidden agendas. As the floods recede and the dams do their work, the real question is still out there. Will these strategic currents push the region toward cooperation or lead to conflict along Africa's most vital river?